Welcome to the Player Supreme Show. I'm your host, Player Supreme.
The following program is rated TV MA-LV. It contains strong language, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Yes, welcome to the show today. And I want to talk about a subject that just about everyone on the forum, actually everyone on the forum, has had to deal with at least one time in their life. Fear. Fear is the cancer of the human spirit. If the human spirit can get cancer, like our physical bodies get cancer, then that cancer would be fear. We see fear all over, everywhere we go. In our movies, in our stories. Reminds me of the science fiction Dune, the one done by Frank Herbert. It's the only one who did Dune. But there was a term in there that was used that said fear is the mind killer. Let me lay the story out for you. In the early part of the story, Paul Atreides, the only son of Duke Leto Atreides, he gets called in by his mama. And she has some important visitor there. Her visitor is that woman who's the mother superior of the Bene Gesserit order. And Paul's mama is a priestess, rather words. The reason that he gets called in there, Paul realizes when he's led to this table, and there's this ordinary looking green box with a hole in the top. And the hole's just big enough to stick his hand through. And he's told to put his hand in the freaking box. When he asks what's in the box, he's told pain. So he's told to put his hand in the box. And Paul, he kind of wants to believe his mama wouldn't let anything hurt him. But he also knows how, this Gesserit order is. And his mom's all, devoted, like a church follower. So he kind of deduces that his future might depend on the choices that he makes. So he goes up to the box and recites to himself the exercises taught to him by his instructors, martial art instructor. And it starts with, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. It's beautiful. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Isn't that powerful, fellas? I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. Now think of your game, how it brings total obliteration of your game. Think of how it becomes your mind killer. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. That's powerful. How many of you permit your fear to pass over and through you? Are you able to defeat it? Or do you, like a lot of other guys, allow the fear to defeat you? This is what creates a virgin. That is a man who has let his fear, false evidence appearing real, fear, F-E-A-R, to defeat him. That's what creates 30-year-old virgins, 25-year-old virgins, 21-year-old virgins. Let me give you another example of a story. In Indiana Jones 3, I think it was called The Last Crusade, Indy, he was standing at the edge of this bottomless chasm, and he's been told there's a way to cross, but you can't see it. He can't see it. Indy knows he's got to get to the other side, otherwise his father will die. So he steps out. He doesn't give a damn about the common human fear of falling. His courage and faith become rewarded when his foot steps on what appears to be a bridge out of thin air. Now, I know these are fictional characters confronting fictional obstacles, but don't we all face the fear of what's around the next corner, or the fear of approaching a beautiful woman? Don't we all have, what will happen if I make the wrong decision? Let's say if you try to go into business, will my business succeed? Can I really succeed? Is she going to turn me down? Is she going to reject me like I was rejected in junior high school, or in elementary school, or in kindergarten, or when I was 5 years old? Is she going to reject me like that? Am I good enough? Fear of the unknown, my friends. What we do when faced with these fear situations will determine how we step in our lives and how successful we will become. Virgins, that's the reason why you're virgins. It has already determined your future until you learn to conquer that fear. I mean, do we walk in fear because we're unable to accept risk or failure? Is that what we're condemning ourselves to? Can we trust enough in our dreams and abilities to just take that first step? Can we trust enough in our own manhood to take that first step to approach a girl? Do we have enough faith in ourselves? If you're still a virgin, you have not. You have had no faith in yourself as a man. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the mind killer. Fear can also be the killer of hopes and dreams. Fear is the destroyer of lives. Think about it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Nelson Mandela, from his inaugural speech. I love those words. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. I wish that were true for everyone. And maybe it is in some ways. Mark Twain once said, I have been through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened. Stella said that's really not that bad. You think it's bad, but it's really not. See, I think one of the most famous quotes of all about fear, see if you recognize this one. I can't do the voice. I used to be able to do the voice. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Franklin D. Roosevelt. A man named Edward Weeks once said, I will continue along the thoughts of which is a most profound truth about fear. To live with fear and not be afraid is the final test of maturity. I would say it's the final test, fellas, of manhood, not just maturity. To live with fear and not be afraid or not let it destroy you is a final test of manhood. As I've talked about in previous shows, we no longer have those rights of manhood that prepared us. We no longer live in tribes where your manhood is tested, where you're allowed to flower and grow. Instead, we live in societies that crush us. That is why you virgins are having so much trouble. Society, your life, your environment has crushed your manhood. And you let fear take hold and dominate in your lives. We need the rights of manhood to come back. Fear is the mind's greatest sin. Think about it. How many of you desire to start a business? Let's say you've had this great idea, but you don't tell a soul about it because you're afraid they won't think it's great. Or how many have liked this girl, but you don't tell anybody about it because you're afraid your friends will think that she isn't hot enough. Back to business. Let's say you've had this desire to change careers, but instead you cower like a rat at the mere thought of getting out of your comfort zone, getting out from under the safety net that you've created for yourself, such as your job, your security, your routine. Even a different routine causes you fear. Let's say you've always wanted to start a business, but the thought of putting together a business plan, getting financing, and the unknown quantity of the income that you'll get scares the fuck out of you. Now, how many opportunities have you allowed to slip between your fingers because you were frozen by fear? How many opportunities with women have you allowed to slip through your fingers because you were frozen with fear? Do you know more about the things you fear than the things you desire? Is the fear of failure your biggest fear? Let me tell you something. There is not a single person in this game or any game that has ever accomplished anything of significance without that first feeling of being scared to death. All of us have went through it. If you're a virgin, you're someone who has not overcame it. If you are successful in the game, you have overcome that first feeling of being scared to death. You think I wasn't scared to death when I walked over and asked Dottie those silly, stupid questions? Are you interested in parapsychology? Too? I remember I said two? You think I wasn't scared to death? I think I wasn't scared to death to kiss her, to know that I have to kiss her to seal the deal if I wanted her to be my girlfriend. You learn to recognize your own signs of fear. For some of us, we get that knot in the gut. Some of us, we get a state of anxiety, shaking. I remember my first public speaking class way back in college. Leaning on the lectern, my voice shaking, stuttering, the lectern shaking, my legs shaking. Some of you who have stepped up to your fear has faced this fear with public speaking. I applaud you. You've conquered that fear. We all who have done public speaking know that first fear well. My poor girlfriend, whenever I get her to speak, she grinds her teeth the week before she knows she's going to be speaking. She's still afraid, even though she speaks very well now. Fear is a loaded gun, squarely aimed to slay you and all of your potential. So you need to be on guard every waking moment to deflect that invisible bullet that you aim at yourself. I close with H.P. Lovecraft saying, "Fear is the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind." Fear truly is, my friends, the cancer of the human spirit.